Alrighty, welcome everybody to the BC Business Spotlight interview series. Today we're joined by Paul Davidescu, the co-founder of Tangoo. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing excellent, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So why don't you start off with Paul? What do you guys do over at Tangoo?
It's a great question. We essentially run a finance and quality of life accelerator. And essentially, the idea is that we give entrepreneurs the systems that make you enough money to focus on more important and fulfilling things. So, essentially, a lot of entrepreneurs, why are you an entrepreneur? Well, I want freedom in my finances and my time. That's the whole point of being a business owner. Usually, the challenge is, of course, is that they're in the business and they're in the business, never on the business. So, what's one of the biggest problems? Is it's a money problem and a quality of life problem. So we're
Of
like,
course.
is there a way for a business owner on day one, not once they've made it, if they make it, to have a symbiotic relationship between their finances, so how they bring in sales and how they invest their money, with their quality of life in terms of having more time for their relationships, their family, travel, etc. So it's basically human relationship systems from a sales perspective and personal systems. So how does it all come together? So we have essentially two major brands, and the main one is Tangoo Sales Acceleration.
Yeah.
So people come to us and they say, "Hey, I want," for example, there might be a technical founder and like they're not all at all into sales. They're just not an extroverted person, and they
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I need help with sales systems. How do I do it? I don't know what channel to start with. I don't even know how to take a proper discovery meeting. Or if I'm doing that, I want to do it more efficiently." So we have basically a sales acceleration consultancy. Uh, the way it works is that our point is that we say to help you sell with little calories spent as possible. So how
Nice. I
does
like
that
it.
work? Number one is mentally, if you see sales as sales and you don't see it as relationship building, you're going to work two times as harder and feel two times as shitty when you get a no. So how do you reframe that towards building relationships? And I'll get to that in a second. The second part is how can you use the power of automation, whether it's through LinkedIn, email, etc., not to add to the pile of spam that you probably receive on a daily basis, but to thoughtfully nudge someone to get to a meeting to then get to the part that you're most valuable in. That's the one-to-one sales or business development. So basically, it's
Yeah.
an accelerator program, and we combine automation with training. And again, it's mainly for people that are, usually they're within anywhere from 2 to 10 people, and they want to actually grow a sales force eventually. They want a playbook to train them properly, and they know they have to get around to it in a way that's really time efficient, so they can work on the things that they most want to build. And that's usually working on your, whether it's product or actually, doing high level biz dev. That is our main brand. And on the back end of that, we actually have a mortgage company which helps founders where they eventually get their sales systems and they start to save money. They can then qualify for a property that's used for investment purposes, or of course to give them quality of life, because a lot of people work hard. They might make a lot of money, but they have no time to spend on like their life and be
Yeah.
like a nice human being, and they don't have time to or money to spend on a property to give them that reassurance that they don't have to be a renter for life. So it's two synergistic brands, and it's basically again solving money problems for entrepreneurs. That's kind of our key focus.
No, I love that. I love that. And how did you, Paul, end up in this space as a whole and this variety of things that you're doing? How long have you been doing it all together?
Definitely. So it's a decade overnight success. We essentially started, and a lot of people who are listening and recognize the name Tangoo, we started in the restaurant business. We were on Dragon's Den in 2015. And the vision of it, which is still true today, is that we reduce the friction in one-to-one relationships with people.
Yeah.
So that initially was, you want to close someone for to be a client, a business partner, or at that point maybe you're on a date and you're building a
Yeah.
relationship, and it's usually very contrived and like, okay, like we're on a date, right? Like, how do we make this a bit more organic? Or
Yeah.
we're, I'm interviewing someone, or I'm working with a client. Am I just going to give them a straight up sales pitch? No, it's about how do you create an experience where you break bread, the defenses go down, and you're building a relationship with the intention of a transaction. However, you're thinking bigger than that. If there isn't a fit and you can quickly ask each other the really important questions to see if you're even a fit for each other, how can you do that organically so it feels natural, and eventually you refer them to someone else or vice versa? That's the
Yeah.
long-term sales game. So that was just all food. And eventually, as we got into the business model side of things, restaurants are hard to make money from. They can barely make money, especially in a pandemic time.
Of course.
The biggest problem was I need sales help, Paul, which we did okay. As
Yeah.
people say, selling ice to the Eskimos, right? Selling any service to a restaurant with no money was pretty difficult. But what were the principles there on building relationships and creating automation so that we could leverage our time properly and essentially build sales systems. And that's where Tangoo kind of started. And then from there, we tested these sales systems on the mortgage market in 2020 when interest rates were at 1%, just to validate the playbook of things we had done. I went to Toronto. I moved there for 4 days to expand Tangoo. And we're like, what if I could be my own customer? Right? We're breaking into, this is maybe a learning as you're maybe selling something to a new market. You can be your own customer. If you have that luxury somehow, you can show them a proven first case study and you're the case study. That gives a lot of confidence. So we tested it out. I got my license in a week. Usually that's what it takes to get a license in Ontario. BC was 6 months. So the extra speed really helped in Toronto. It's an important nuance on where you choose to do business in, by the way. We tested it and we're like, can proper sales and relationship building systems help someone be successful who doesn't have as much domain expertise? And usually I think that's the fallacy. People are like, I'm not going to sell till my product's ready. I'm not going to sell till I'm an expert here. And while you need a foundation there, guess what? The more touch points you get from a sales perspective, you're actually doing customer discovery on them. So we did that, and we got nominated, like fast forward 3 years later, to be as the broker of the year across Canada. We got lucky with the interest rates in the hot market, but it was done through a methodical sales acceleration system. And then, of course, it's like you have a kid when you didn't want to have a kid. Now you have this new brand, and it's part of the family. And of course, we grow that brand on the mortgage side, but it was actually building the playbook for this go-to-market plan that now we do systematically for clients who want sales help. So that's a bit of the genesis of Tangoo, building relationships, and then how we have a mortgage company that's directly in that kind of ecosystem of helping founders solve money problems from a quality of life perspective, and of course, from a sales side.
That's amazing. Yeah. And as they say, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. So
I love it.
100%.
Yeah, totally.
And so obviously building, that sounds like a pretty rapid growth the last couple of years. How was the day-to-day running of your business impacted, and the way you guys did business and scaled impacted by COVID? Like, what were some of the changes you had to make in consideration?
Totally. I mean, behaviorally speaking, nothing changed on our end. We've been remote first from the start because
Gotcha.
we can be. I see the value in meeting clients in person or partners if they're high value, let's be honest, and there's that kind of mutual
Of course,
reciprocity.
yeah.
So it depends on kind of how you do it. But yeah, basically the world was not caught up with that until COVID happened. So once we could do that, I could actually go to Toronto and have BC clients for 4 years. And sometimes when I'm on Zoom, they see that it's dark in the background and it's like sunny in Vancouver. I get questions and I'd be like, listen, like we work remotely, but we'll work on your time zone. But yeah, it was nice to have the tailwind of consumers, customers being okay with remote, even just figuring out how to log in on Zoom. That's useful. And yeah, that helped us really scale, again, be in multiple places at once. And I mean, it also helped us, given that also people didn't want to meet you in person, and we had less touch point. Even if you wanted to meet a huge client in person, they're like, no, we're not going to meet. And we had these contrived 30-minute Zoom meetings, which you can't really, it's hard to build rapport on that. We had to work a lot on like making our meetings more intentional. Again, our sales process became a lot more like, more intentional, but also here's the thing. You'll meet a client, COVID or not COVID, and like they may be really interested in working with you because there's like a fit, it makes sense. So we say there's 3 things that lead to a sale: trust, an actual fit between their problem and your solution, and timing. Timing is the hard one. When they say, I love what you do, let's do it, we'll do it soon, and then you get ghosted for 6 or 18 months, that's the most difficult part. And eventually you have 1,000 leads in your database. Like, who should I call? Should I just go from A to Z and hope for the best? I mean, maybe, but what if when you met them in that first meeting, which is, it ties into the COVID thing, because again, I might not see them again for 18 months, I'm going to, again, not do sales. I'm going to build a relationship, but also I'm going to do customer discovery. I usually ask, what's your biggest challenge right now? And when I get them to say it like that, and let's say it's hiring and I'm selling them a sales solution, I'm like, that's not their challenge right now. So I'm going to be a resource and introduce people to them that fits their immediate challenge. Really important from just like a business development standpoint. But also I'm going to put into my CRM, these are their biggest challenges. And if they do give me with their sales challenges, which may not be the immediate thing on their plate, I'll put into my CRM. And eventually I will send out an email to all the people that I tagged as biggest sales challenge is automation, or let's say biggest sales challenge is getting a first discovery meeting. And I'll send an email. Hey, Jason, it's been a while since we spoke. And that's by the way, a blank field. Hi, first name. This is CRM jargon. It's been a while since we spoke. Last time we spoke, your biggest pain was this. Is that still a pain? By the way, we either have a new solution for that, or I just did an interview series with Jason around that exact issue. Hope you're doing well. Later on, I have a report on everyone who clicked on my email, opened it, and I have lead scoring. Guess who I'm going to call now out of the 1,000, the top 10. So you're doing lead scoring, you're doing customer discovery, you're doing sales. And those are all things we had to do in COVID because we didn't have the luxury of time it was a lot more structured. So that's maybe, again, a long answer to your question, but it ties into what we've been building up in this interview.
And a lot of that stuff, I'm assuming you guys have continued to do. Have you become more relaxed with it, maybe just because you may have some more time, or have you even buttoned down even further on it?
It's a perfect hybrid where, yeah, we can do a bit of both. We're uber efficient when we need to be, but
Of
also
course.
like
Yeah.
we obviously the value of like, if again, if you can qualify someone, vice versa, through like, let's call it the sample, and then you see there's a fit, and part of it too is like quality of life is relationships. So like, even if I was the most efficient person ever and we were making, all the money we could ever dream about, relationships are important for me. And if I can't have a beer with this person at some point, that's an
Yes.
issue in terms of how far we can go with them. So I will usually meet with clients if A, there's a fit, we've pre-screened each other, and like we see like that's gonna be more than just like, a 1 month arrangement or a one-off. Yeah, I'll make the time and we'll go on a hike, or we'll go do a retreat somewhere, or we'll do something that really, like, I even think that if you go and do quality of life activities with a potential client or partner, that's when the real ideas get going. That's where you also see who they are beyond the screen, which, back to your question, if you really want to work with someone like, and it's high value, meet in person, share a beer, make sure there's
Yes.
aligned values, or else,
Yeah.
like, again, like with dating or anything else, there's going to be some philosophical differences in the future, which may just make it less enjoyable, even if you make money. So for us, quality of life and a finance accelerator, those two things got to be intertwined, and relationships are massive.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And that's huge. Yeah. Being relationship first with all, I'm going to say business relationships in life too, but in business relationships, especially being relationship first versus sales focused, I think is where the trend is going more effectively long term. And that's definitely something that we work with a lot of our clients, our members, to produce anyway. What would
Totally, yeah,
you
I bet.
say are some of the general challenges that you face in your industry specifically?
Yeah, I mean, number one, if you look at the sales acceleration side, I mean,
Hmm.
there's people who just say, "I'll just figure out sales by myself,"
Yeah.
which is possible. Just at what speed do you want to do that, right? So it's kind of like, I feel like more people, like, their budget is, oh, I have a budget for a CTO or a fractional tech people because I can't do that at all, and I definitely need to outsource that. Okay, great. But then there's that blurred line of, I can kind of do sales, but I don't know if I should pay for it because I can kind of do it. And that's the issue where, like, you can do sales off the side of your desk, but if you're never breaking through or being effective, you're just wasting time, because you also need to be in something and you need to break through somehow, where you eventually, it's like going to the gym, right? You have a race in 3 months. Okay, well, you want to start at like 5 or 10 minutes a day and build up to that,
Yeah.
right? With the help of someone, or you're going to leave it all until, like, the last month because you're busy with some tech stuff. So it's really like an education problem of, like, like, people understanding where sales training, acceleration, and CRM automation is an important thing, that while they can do, they're better off spending their time on what their zone of genius is. And
Yeah.
that might be building technology or running staff. So it's like, and that's what we filter our clients. Like, are you of the mentality to optimize your time and be in your zone of excellence? Even if the other thing you're outsourcing, you can kind of do, or even do well. So it's a
Yeah.
really around, like, how do we weigh each other's time optimizations? And not everyone has that mindset. That's kind of like our sales problem, is it the right person? And we just, yeah, are very intentional in our meetings. On the mortgage side now, rates at the time of recording, end of 2022, are 5.5, right? So people, of course, are sitting on the sidelines and waiting for things to happen. That's totally cool. Our big thing is we want you to be ready to pounce on something, because there are discounts now, right? How do you get ready to pounce on something and look beyond the interest rate, but look at the total value of the property appreciation, the rental potential on it, of course, and like, how do you look holistically at something where you're scared? Like, right and left brain, right? Your right brain is emotions,
Yeah.
left brain is logic. So everyone usually is in the right side. They're very emotional, right? It makes sense. It's how we are as humans. So how do you show someone numbers on something that isn't quite urgent, but we make them proactive to be able to really dial things down when timing works out? So it's just like both of those brands, sales training and mortgages, is that people see something sometimes as not urgent, but it's important. And it's at what point are they going to make a decision to start to make that a priority, and double, and we just say, like, number one metric for either business, it's what is your relative income. That's what's your dollar per hour return on your time. End of the
Of course.
month,
Of course. Yeah.
how much profit do you make, not revenue, and how many hours did it take you, and how do you optimize that ratio? I mean, it's popularized in books like The 4 Hour Work Week. I'm sure something you've talked to a lot of clients about. It says about what's your effective dollar per hour, because that gives you freedom, right? So based off of that, how do we optimize it? And again, it comes down to you dividing and conquering and just having a great way for money to come in efficiently through sales and through investing strategies, whether it's real estate or any other asset class.
Yeah,
And
for
while
sure.
that's happening, you're doing your thing that can contribute to that bigger picture, which is usually somewhere involved in the product development, right? Sales can be peripheral. But anyways, again, longer answer, but I'm trying to hit a few different kind of, strike throughs so that our listeners can see a bit of a common theme on optimizing time
Yeah,
and
yeah.
where sales can come into that.
Being efficient with your time, even if the timing isn't perfect, really. So yeah, right now, timing might not be perfect to say get a house or do whatever, make an investment, or even if it is time to invest in your business, right? It might not be the perfect time for you. But again, that's where that relationship side of selling really comes in. Make sure you
Totally.
constantly are top of mind or are providing that thing for them should they need it. Now, I'm going to kind of combine our next two questions because I feel like you'll be able to rule off it pretty well. But one thing we've been talking with a lot of our business owners on that we've been interviewing is the process of owning a business can be stressful, can have a lot of its oh shit moments kind of deal. Have you ever felt
Mm-hmm.
like quitting through the process of being a business owner? I don't know if you maybe run companies in the past outside of Tangoo.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say is one of your biggest learning lessons since being a business
Love it. So yeah, I mean, definitely, that's like the daily thing, right?
owner?
Now,
Yeah.
there's actually a very topical book called Quits. There's also a book in the early days by Seth Godin called The Dip, and they talk about when quitting is optimal. And we're not primed through society to quit because it's seen as a sign of weakness, but actually, and quit can mean two things. Quit is like, I'm doing a startup, this isn't working, I'm folding it, off I go. And there's, I'm doing a startup going in a certain direction, but I need to pivot and quit that business
Yes.
model.
Yeah.
So Tangoo has gone through many pivots. So we've quit many industries, but we've eventually whittled it down to sales acceleration for founders. By the time some people see this recording, we might have already evolved. But the point is like, at what point do you pivot? And we've had some brands that like have been a totally different brand. It worked for a certain amount of time. At some point, we're literally beating a dead horse. We're going to shut it down gracefully, take our learnings, and off we go. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
there's smart quitting, and it comes down to your dollar per hour. Unless you're a venture funded business and there's like a big kind of like intangible exit value, which a lot of times there are. If that's not the game, if you're in consulting specifically or brick and mortar, what's the return on your time if you're not working for the exit? I think is the big thing. And if your dollar per hour ends up being at like 20, 30, or $50, that's not good enough. You should be operating at 100 to 250 plus an hour. And I almost think that's like a minimum. You should be striving for 500 or $1,000 an hour.
Yeah.
So if you're not there and you've been like 6 to 12 months, let's say past the startup phase, and that depends on the industry. But if you're like a year past something and you're not like innovating a brand new solution, like you're just like a new realtor, new shop owner, whatever it is, like it's an established business model, and you're past kind of like, and talk to a few industry experts. At what point do you start making certain money? Once you've broken through that, if you're not at like a healthy dollar per hour and you're past the benchmarks, then you might need to consider pivoting. I think again, I think quitting is actually very important. And again, it's like you pivot or you quit. But I had the problem where like, for the first 3 business models of Tangoo, I was doing restaurant marketing and social media marketing to restaurants. 2, I hate to say, terrible business models. Restaurants don't
Yeah.
have money. And if you do social media marketing, usually, unless you're a big agency working with Coca-Cola, business owners don't care about top of funnel. My brand looks good. Unfortunately, they care. It's just not tangible. It doesn't relate to money. So I was
Yeah.
selling an intangible product to a business with no money. That is obviously like, I mean, I don't know. I went forward with my heart. I like to connect people. I love hospitality. I love culture. But that was a clash with like the realities of business model. So make sure your business model is sound, and
Yeah.
also make sure that it gets you going. You have to get out of bed for it too. So what's the intersection of that? If you're too skewed to like, this is a business for the love of it, and you're working like way harder than you need to, that's a problem. So with us, my dollar per hour was $10. I was paying myself $3,000, and I was working 300 hours per month. That's $10 an hour. I never noticed that because I'm an optimist and I was getting a lot of positive reinforcement. We were on Dragon's Den, we were on global TV, and those are all great PR experience. But at a certain point, the dopamine kind of fades, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I want to like start a family, buy a house. I'm getting paid $10 an hour. I'm not being efficient with my output, and that's where I
Of
had to
course.
eventually quit. And I mean, in this respect, we opened up the mortgage company, which freed me up financially, and then
Yeah.
that fed into making Tangoo a lot more focused in its sales systems because we had a playbook. That was actually my big breakthrough. And I was in Toronto, really just 4 years ago, that we kind of had that big level up, and now we're like, wow, what other business owners that are stuck in the grind can we help them financially with, again, an emphasis on quality of life and knowing how to optimize their dollar per hour rate? Super important. Can't stress it enough.
Awesome. Yeah, that's we had a similar experience actually earlier in the office last week. our CEO Derek, he came into the room and he was we were chatting about some of the things that we're working with some of our business owners on. One of the main focuses right now is billable hour efficiency rate. So how many
Love it.
hours of the work you're putting in are at, like you're kind of saying, at that optimal level for your billable hour efficiency rate. So
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. That's an incredible learning lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Now, Paul, say we got some folks who are looking at optimizing their sales automations and their processes. What's the best place for them to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, 100%. So tangoomarketing.com, something I'm sure you can drop in in
Yeah,
the
we will.
description
Absolutely.
or in the mail. So yeah, tangoomarketing.com, and even just connect at Paul Davidescu, Pauldavidescu. That's a Romanian last name. And on Instagram, you'll see the things that I'm working on. And if I can be a connector for you on LinkedIn, or do you want to shoot me a quick DM on whatever you have around sales or financing, hit me up. And that's about it. I'm looking forward to hearing what your business owners and clients are most struggling with, and where can we all be connected to each other so that we're all doing this grind, but we're flowing with it. We're
Of
enjoying
course.
it, and we have some kind of freedom again. So what we sign up to do it for in the first place, and that's relationships and quality of life. So we're recording this end of 2022. This is goal setting time.
Yeah.
Perfect time to recalibrate and just reach out to people to help you get over your blockers. But yeah, that's how they can get in touch with me and the team.
Awesome, awesome. And the last question for you today, Paul, sorry. The last question for you today is what is most inspiring for you today?
What is most inspiring for me today? So there's a lot of ways this can go. It's like, what's the podcast? What's the book? Who are the people, etc.
Yeah.
Um, what's most inspiring for me today? I think it's got to be around something I've been doing recently. Is I've been going on retreats with other founders and business owners, and I'm talking like we go to a cabin on Vancouver Island. We turn off our phones and we do work on the important but not urgent. So literally, we're there to do life planning, quarterly planning. We're just like sitting on an important decision that we can never really get around to when we're in the inertia of day to day. And I get on these retreats, I get to learn a lot about their blockers personally, financially. We do a bunch of activities. We do Wim Hof cold plunges. We eat
Nice.
awesomely. We do meditation. We do all the modalities that get your brain to be like in a really empathetic, creative state. And that's like, I think, the best intersection of like business owners and quality of life is like doing these retreats. And I can't wait to do the one I'm doing in Worcester in 3 days actually.
Nice.
And then for next year, my intention too is I want to create more, not just like 3 day retreats, but even just day retreats where I get founders together. We play pickleball, we do an activity, and then like we just get to talk about like the whole picture holistically. And again, what's the inspiration? And so again, another long answer to your short question. It's doing great activities of good people to do extraordinary things. And the more activities I can blend together with like good-hearted entrepreneurs, I love it. And I think it's all about that. So that's inspiring for me. It's community building. And I moved back to Vancouver pretty recently, and just reconnecting with everyone that I have like such a fondness for and seeing them throughout the years
Of course.
go throughout their evolution. There's nothing better than, like, I call it the OG community flowing together in nature. And that's actually a big part of what one of our podcasts talks about: grind less, flow more. So I get that inspiration every day. And it's so cool, the entrepreneurs we have in Vancouver that, again, have prioritized quality of life, and they've moved back from New York. They've moved back from Toronto because they figured out their finances, and now they're just like putting their foot in the sand. They're like, now it's about the whole picture. So anyways, super inspired by that. And with that comes all kinds of cool books like the ones I mentioned earlier today, and all kinds of, inspiring media. But I think it's around the people and the way you design your lives together.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thanks so much for the time today, Paul. It was great to get to know you and Tangoo and everything that you guys are doing. And look forward to the future conversations for sure.
To be continued, Jason. Your joy. Thanks so much. And I love what you guys are doing. I mean, coaching, by the way, is one of all these breakthroughs I had were all with coaches.
Amazing.
They're the ones
Absolutely.
who let me zoom out. So I couldn't agree that what you guys are doing are just like super important. And excited to hear back from your community and also cross paths and maybe play some pickleball one of these days here in Vancouver.
Yeah, let's do
Open
it, man.
invite.
Awesome. Cheers.
Take care. Thank you.